guess that's what.
Non-for-profit volunteer organization.
Yeah, but there's the pause button.
Anyone who is a resident of Port Jefferson Village, Port Jefferson School District, and Port Jefferson Fire District can become a voting member. A voting member means you need to attend 3 meetings in a year, pay $20, and then when we put important issues in front of our community and we want to take an official stance, you have a chance to vote. One of the important votes that we will have this year is April. We will be electing a new board for the Civic Association. Presently, I am the president. I am Anna. We have our vice president, Holly. Please wave. We have our treasurer, Marilyn. Our communications officer slash
Whatever.
outreach secretary, Kathleen, over here. We are the ones who are doing most of the business for the Civic Association, and we always welcome your inputs. We presently have Walkability and Quality of Life Committee that is being chaired by John. There you are. If you have any issues or concerns that are related to the quality of life in Port Jeff, you can direct it to him. John, wave your hand again.
There's a reason why I'm hiding back here.
Today we have a guest speaker who is the county executive, Ed Romaine. But before we have him here on stage, I want to acknowledge a number of other people who are here in the audience. First and foremost, our mayor is here, Mayor Sheffield. I don't see at the moment someone else. Yeah. We have Steve Engelbright, who is our county elected representative. We have a representative from Rebecca Cassay's office, Maria Adora. If you have any questions, please do go there. And we do have a reporter, Sabrina Atusa from TBR. So this meeting is recorded, both on this phone over here and will be reported in the office. Did I forget anyone else? Trustee Juliana, Trustee Juliana and Trustee Grinsky, Deputy Mayor Grinsky is also here. And we have a representative from Three Village Civic Association. Oh my God, this is a full house today. I also want to extend my gratitude to the Port Jefferson Free Library for giving us home. Without them, we would have not had a space to meet, and we're very grateful for that. All right.
And the taxpayers too. We got
Taxpayers?
the taxpayers.
All of the residents, thank you for coming in. Before we give the stage to our guest today, I've asked our county representative, Steve Engelbright, to do a short introduction to Ed Romaine, because they worked together for quite some time.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to see the gathering that's here this evening. Don't give up hope. Summer is coming. But the turnout on such a blustery week of bad weather is wonderful. Yes, it's true. I have known and had the privilege of working with Ed Romaine since the first time I met him. He has been just a terrific public servant. And I remember when I met him, it was at the first meeting that I attended of the Suffolk County Legislature in January 3rd of 1984. And I had, a bewilderment about myself. I didn't know who all the players were, but there was one individual who was just seated just a few seats away, and he was effusively welcoming and wonderful. And he has been continuously a terrific partner in things that are important to this community and to this county since that first meeting. Consistency and honorable activities have characterized everything that he's been involved with, that I've been able to observe over these many decades now. And it's a privilege to have a chance to continue to work with him. He's our county executive. I'm in the county legislature. Thank you for sending me there. I'll just give you a couple of examples of why it's important that he's here this evening. There is a large federal Superfund site known as Lawrence Aviation that is just up the road from where we are. Over decades of time, this man has dedicated, this is before he was a representative specifically for this area, he was keenly interested in making sure that that industrial site with its contamination was cleaned up. He cared about what happened to the water chemistry of our harbor even before he became a representative representing this community's harbor. And over many years has advocated for electrification of the railroad and for appropriate reuse of that industrial site for public purposes. As some of you know, the industrial buildings that were at Lawrence Aviation were a heavy industry. They did smelting there. And they used a lot of solvents. Those solvents went into the ground, unfortunately. And Ed made it his business to push for what became a federal cleanup, one of the largest in Long Island history. The buildings themselves are gone now. I want to tell you, it would not have happened if it was not for Ed Romaine's persistent vision and determination to do the right thing by this community. So this was during the years that he did represent the community, but it was, as I said, this is a pattern of consistency that predated his specific representation of this area. It has continued, and it continues today in his present position. And it is a great privilege and an honor to tell you a little bit of why it's such a wonderful thing that he takes time out of, there are 10 towns in this county, to take the time out to be with us this evening is a great honor, and it's a privilege to say, please welcome our county executive, Ed Romaine.
Well, I'm going to return the compliment to Steve. He's been in government almost as long, a little bit more actually, than I have done. This is my 41st year as an elected official in Suffolk County. So a little bit about it. I know Steve was in Assemblyman for a long time, fought the good fight up in Albany. Cold place to be, very gray city, but he carried the message. He was a great legislator, always advocating for the environment, always trying to do the right thing. And if you go back a few years, he was a great geologist, teaching at Stony Brook University. So Steve, I'm so happy with the legislature, so happy. But he started talking about Lawrence Aviation. Obviously, as some people before I became county executive, I did a lot of different jobs. I was in the legislature with Steve. I was county clerk for 16 years. I went back to the legislature. Then I became supervisor in Brookhaven for 12 years. So I certainly know poor Jeff, the mayor, some of the issues. Lawrence Aviation was a big concern of mine to get that site cleaned up. And by the way, the plume is still traveling down towards the harbor. So I have huge concerns about Lawrence Aviation. And I have huge concerns about the Greenway, because the Greenway is actually a bypass highway that DOT wanted to build. And I am opposed to that whatsoever. I would encourage our state assemblywoman, who's very easy to work with, Rebecca Cassay, I would encourage her to put a bill in to either transfer that Greenway to the county, or to the town, or to some other municipality, so it would stay a Greenway and it would not be built as a bypass highway. Which is one of the reasons I did not agree to allow. They wanted the town to agree, wanted the county to agree, that the Greenway, we would allow a bridge to be built so the bypass highway could be built. Absolutely not. There is going to be no bypass highway from Suffolk to Port Jeff Station. Absolutely not. That Greenway should stay the Greenway. The state should either transfer it to DEC and away from DOT, because right now it's all DOT property. That's Department of Transportation. And they don't want to give up on the idea of a bypass. And I understand that isn't what it should be. So we need to see that in municipal hands. Absolutely. And I would encourage our Assemblywoman and our State Senator, who's Senator Palumbo, to introduce a bill to make sure that that Greenway stays the Greenway. Either transfer it to the town, or to the county, or the state DEC. Don't leave it in the possession of DOT, of the Department of Transportation. So, one of the things that people ask is, how do we go about acquiring open space? I think that was one of the questions that you, okay. We all want to see Suffolk stay Suffolk. I was born, 6 months later I moved into this county, a long time ago in this life. And it was so different. I was here before the expressway was built.
Can I interrupt you? Can I encourage you to use the mic?
Sure. I was here before the expressway was built. I was here before, as a kid, I remember the time I had lived in Hot Park, I watched them build Feds Highway. And then I watched them build the school, which is not a middle school, that I eventually wound up teaching in. So it was an interesting experience. But Long Island has changed so much. My last stint in the legislature, my first stint, I did the south east corner of Brookhaven, from Eastport to the Bellport in North Dakota. My second stint in the legislature, I had moved. I live in Center Bridges, but I did Shelter Island, South Hold, Riverhead, and all of Eastern Brookhaven from Shoreham to Center Bridges. So I got to learn a great deal about the East End. One of the things we had, remember John V. N. Klein. Back in 1975, he came up with the idea of let's buy development rights for farms, let's try to save farms. We have about 34,000 acres of farms, 20,000 of which are now preserved because of his vision, okay? And we would buy development rights for farms. And that's so important because farming is a large part of the history of Suffolk County. And the county is going to continue to buy farms and open space. And I am going to support that. I have voted for every single open space and farmland acquisition that you could. And the reason for that is I don't want Suffolk County to become Queens. I do not. It's one of the reasons that when I was supervisor of town of Brookhaven, I was endorsed each time I ran by the Sierra Club because I believe in preserving and saving what's left. That's the slogan from out east, save what is left. So how do you go about saving? First of all, the first ingredient you have to have is you have to have a willing seller. You just can't condemn property. So we always look for a willing seller. And if someone says, yeah, make me an offer, then the legislature, the county was purchasing it all the time, would get an appraisal. So that's the second step. And then once the appraisal came in, as a government, we don't have flexibility. The appraisal is the appraisal is the appraisal. We can order a second appraisal, In fact, there's a piece of property that I'm very, very, very interested in, and was very interested in as supervisor. But it wasn't in my town, it was in the town next door, in Smithtown, called Jeradon. And I don't want to see the sewage treatment plant built there because of the impact that it would have on Stony Brook Harbor. I don't want to see additional development because Route 25A is extremely overdeveloped and the state doesn't have a plan. Well, the plan is to prevent additional development that would create all types of problems. So, I spoke against some of the development at Jeradon as supervisor of the town, which I usually don't like to do, but I went into Smithtown to their planning, spoke against it. And now we're at the point where we may be able to purchase that. We may be. The problem was a willing seller. And I've been talking to the new president of the stockholders for Jared, because it's stockholders and owners. And he's a man with a little bit of history. His great grandfather helped settle Smithtown. In fact, legend has it correct. His ancient relative wrote the bill, Bull Smith.
Oh,
This is Richard Smith, who, by the way, is not only the historian for the town of Smithtown, but also the mayor of Nessequa. And now he's the president of the stockholders. And he called me up and said, let's see what we can do. They know they can make more money by selling to the developers. They know that there might be some litigation involved. And they just want to get this over with as soon as possible. So the Peconic Land Trust, which helps us with all types of appraisals, is doing the appraisal. So first a willing seller, then the appraisal, and then negotiations. And there's all types of things that you can do with negotiations. Let's say someone says, you know, we offer $1 million, and someone, obviously Sheraton's going to be a lot more than that. But let's say we offer $1 million, and a developer says, wait a second, I own this property, I have an appraisal that says it's 1.2 million. Okay, great. Take our $1 million, and the other 200,000 you can convince the IRS as a tax write-off. And that's the way you work deals. You work deals because at the end of the day, they ain't making any more real estate. And we have to say what is left. Because if we overdevelop this island, it's not a good thing. And you see all the time, people looking to build more. And you see the traffic. I don't have to tell you, I drive the expressway every day. It's incredible. So I don't know what answered some of your questions about what it takes to purchase it. But you also need legislators like Steve Ackerman who are willing to say, yes, we're going to spend some money to preserve this. Now, a while back, I wasn't supervisor at the time, I was county clerk at the time. The town had an opportunity to do what they've done in the 5 western towns, eastern towns. So the 5 eastern towns, they have a community preservation fund. And they use that fund to buy open space and to buy farmland and a whole host of other things. We don't have that. There was a vote on this, I think, at the, well, maybe about 25 years ago, 24 years ago. And the voters, by a very close margin, defeated that. But all of 5 eastern towns have a community preservation fund, and they use that money. Now, some towns make more out of that because what it is, it's a certain percentage of, if you're buying something, the buyer or the seller, depending on who it is, will pay a small percentage of that property. But towns like East Hampton, make $20-30 million a year from this fund is nothing. Towns like Southampton, $20-30 million. Towns like Riverhead, not so much. And South Hope, not so much. Certainly Shelter Island, not so much. But whatever money they raise, they use to buy open space or farmland preservation rights. this. So if there's any questions, I'll certainly stop it for you, because you asked me to speak about that.
Absolutely.
I-
One of the,
And Steve is an expert on this process as well.
because one of the challenges is always comes in is where do you get the money? Is there a possibility on the Suffolk Council level to have something similar as a fund that purchases properties?
County has always been generous with this. County always has a capital budget, and we set money aside for that. When I became county executive, we immediately put $100 million aside over the next 10 years to buy whatever farmland exists, the development rights to that farmland. And we have $15 million in the capital budget today. We don't have a problem. Now, Geraldine, we don't have budgeted. That's not a problem. I've already spoke to the controller. We will go to bond. We will do this because we will not have another opportunity. We have to take the opportunities as they come. And we will make sure that if we can preserve the 49 acres at Geraldine, we will do that, because we don't need more development at that location. But again, we need a willing seller that does seem interested. We are doing a second, we have a Conic Land Trust, which helps us do a second appraisal, so we're gonna do that. And hopefully we can come to an agreement, and in the next few months, we can have a victory. Otherwise, we're gonna have more traffic on 25A. And I'll tell you, anyone that drives that road, the intersection of Stony Brook Road and 25A, what a mess. They need to do something there with that.
Absolutely. So, for example, there are a number of properties that might be coming up for sale, and even in our village, or I know there are representatives here who are interested in preserving the space outside of the village, but still within the Suffolk County. Is there a process where that land, whether it's teeny post stamp or a larger several acres plan?
It all depends on the property, and it all depends on the rating, because we just don't go out and buy properties, as Steve will tell you. There is a rating system, and it's done by professionals in our planning department of the county, which will rate the value of these properties. So obviously farmland, we always want to preserve farmland, but we will rate all of these properties, and they're all rated, and the legislators, believe me, Steve will tell you, because he has to sit through those meetings, which I don't. And they debate this over and over again, the value of property and which properties we should be acquiring and going out and trying to acquire. But Geraldine is something that I think most people, including Steve is the next door neighbor, and the legislator there south of Micah, I was called Romaine of Braddock. But he is very interested and extremely supportive. So we'll see how the appraisal comes in, and we'll negotiate the best deal that we can get. But that would be a win-win, because we don't need additional development in 25A. We just don't.
And what makes the property high on the list versus what would make it low on the list?
I let the professionals do that. I let the professionals. We have a great planning director, Sarah Lansdale. She was under the last county executive. She was on the last two county executives, and she's doing a great job, and she's there. And we'll let her and her professionals make the judgment on that. But
So-
I have never, ever not supported or voted against land acquisition, because they ain't just making no more real estate. We've got to save what is left.
If we can take a turn just to slightly, in purchasing the land is definitely one of the issues that we need land to preserve. However, there are other measures that the county can make to preserve our natural resources, particularly water. The quality of the water, including the preservation of the aquifer. What can Suffolk County do or is doing to make that preservation possible?
Well, one of the things that I would like to do, when Port Jeff is number 2 on the list, Bergen Point is number 1. We need to clean our waterways. In our wastewater right now, 70% of this county is on cesspools or septic. What do you think happens? That's a problem. That's not helping our water quality. It's not helping the harbor. It's not helping anything. Okay? So, I'm concerned about that. It's a huge concern of mine. I know that sewers in congested or crowded areas are needed, and I strongly support that. We also have alternative denitrification systems, which you are funded 100% between the county and the state. And I will be highly critical of the state on so many things because they just don't come through with the money. The exception to that is the IA systems. They are funding with us 50-50, state of New York. I thank them a great deal. And that's when you don't have a sewer and you want a denitrification system. They are 100% funded between the county and the state. So if anyone's interested, we love it. Let me talk about sewers for a second. We're looking to build some sewers in some key areas. But I am only interested in building tertiary sewers that recharge our aquifer. The sewers you have here are non-tertiary. They discharge to the harbor. Stony Brook and Port Jeff sewers discharge to the harbor. Now, they're treated, but what I would like to do is find a way to do water reuse. And you learn things. As I told you, I was a legislator for the Riverhead. And what the county and Riverhead did is they upped the treatment plant, and then they took that treatment and went play golf. Go to Indian Island, which is a county golf course, and they put the treatment out. They don't have to irrigate, and they don't have to fertilize. They put the treatment out. Well, we want to do the same thing. It's called water reuse. We want to do that, and our first target for this is Bergen Point. That's the Southwest Sewer District. They have a county golf course right next door. So we're going to do that. And number 2 on the list, we've got to find the money though, is Port Jeff. And what we would need to do is build a pump station to pump it up to your golf course, municipal golf course. Save you a ton of money on irrigation, save you a ton of money on fertilization. And it would take that and recharge our aquifer. Because if you keep on pumping like we do in the Southwest Sewer District, like we do in Stony Brook, like we do in Port Jeff, what's going to happen? You're going to take away from the aquifer, and what happens? You don't have to look for it. Just look at Southwest National. Salt water intrusion. Because the aquifer is being depleted. It's not being recharged. We need to recharge our aquifers. I am a huge believer in this. And Steve can tell you what will happen if we don't do that. We have to find a way. We should not be pumping out to the ocean or to the sound. We should not.
So the nitrate too that's going in there, that's
Yes.
killing all the life. And everything.
Nitrates is a huge
Huge
problem.
problem.
It's not our only problem. PFAS is another one that is becoming even more endangered. So we face a lot of environmental challenges in the years ahead. And you know what? Someone said a good steward leaves a place certainly better or the same, but not worse than they found it. And we're all stewards of the environment. Yes?
Order of magnitude, I mean,
Hold on just a second.
just a amount of money. If you say we need to find the money, you're talking tens of millions, hundreds of millions?
It depends on which project you're talking about. But yeah,
Let's talk about Port Jeff.
tens of millions.
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions.
So that's, we need state help. This county was extremely supportive, as I was, of the Environmental Bond Act, which was $4.2 billion, I believe. And as I said, the state has helped us out with the IA systems. You know how much money they've given us for sewers? I was extremely supportive of President Biden's Infrastructure Act. And that is distributed to the states. You know how much of that infrastructure money we've got for sewers? But that's a huge need. Water reuse is a huge need. We need to start investing. Otherwise, we don't have to guess. We can, look, what do you think happened to Brooklyn's water? What do you think happened to Queens? They've got to get their water from upstate reservoirs now because their aquifers are shot. Nassau is going that way. Southwest Nassau already has saltwater intrusion. We don't need that. Now, we don't have the population, fortunately, that Nassau does. Nassau's,
yet.
yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet, but Nassau is, we're 3.5 times larger geographically than Nassau. But, you know what? We spread out. Nassau's very condensed. So,
One other
but you know
issue-
what? Yes, go ahead, please.
One other issue where the water is, this interesting conflict between the lawns and the need to water lawns and the fact that we don't have enough water. And like, as one of the examples, I remember in July and August, Suffolk County Water Authority will be texting everyone, please conserve water, please conserve water. And I would be passing by the town, the village, the county properties, and there will be sprinklers going, regardless of whether it was odd or even, regardless whether it was a good time or not. What can the county do to preserve or reduce the need for lawn irrigation? Because that's...
Well, we're gonna do what we would tell everyone else to do, and you'll see that this summer. We're gonna make sure that you don't water every day, no matter how hot or sunny the climate gets, that it's every other day. And I would say that we would save a lot of money because some people water their lawns every day, every other day, please. And then turn off your sprinkler system when you get to October because it's only gonna freeze. And don't turn it on again till May or June if you can avoid it. Because we need to conserve water. Water conservation is important. And we need to preserve as much of our aquifer as possible. Now, fortunately, we live up island, as people would say. But if you lived in Suffolk, they have a very shallow aquifer out there. Shelter Island, the same thing. And they're gonna have water quality as well as water quantity problems in the future. And we're working on that now.
What do you do to preserve that?
Excuse me?
What do you do to preserve that, to make sure that they don't deplete their water?
Well, the Water Authority has a plan, which is not that popular, to take water from Flanders, run it across Riverhead and connect the pipes to Southwold. Right now, not so popular with people in Riverhead. So we'll see what happens with that plan. I'll let them make that argument and deal with the town of Riverhead. But that's just patching up the problem. The best thing to do is try to preserve as much water as possible.
Mm-hmm. The
Yes.
other issue that I really would like to address and discuss is that the preservation of the land is important. However, the quality of the land also depends on whether there are native species there, how much biodiversity is there, and one of the main challenges is the invasive species. And a lot of them are start from the highways and the roadways and then intrude further into the conserved areas. And it is heartbreaking to drive by in the spring by the roads and see all of the knotweed and Norway maple and the tree of heaven and a range of other issues.
We have a
that
lot of
are-
invasive species in Suffolk County.
Absolutely.
And we have a team, I know when Brookhaven Supervisor, we had a team that would go over West Meadow Beach every year and fight the invasive species over there. So we do have people in town and county government trying to fight the invasive species. But it is what it is. And whenever we can, we have a team of people out that go and try to remove invasive species. We want to deal with natural species local to Long Island.
Is there a way how either residents can get involved or to?
Absolutely. got a great legislator here. Just speak to him, and we'll get him the information, and he can mail it out. I would be willing to go on that mailing, because that's an informative mailing to say, if you see these invasive species, get rid of them. And we had an invasive species invade us about 14 years ago. Never had it before. And we may not like the cold weather outside, but I'm hoping it does a lot to kill them. And that's the pine beetle, the southern pine beetle, that because of global warming made its way to New York. So, I mean, really, look at our pine forests. Drive out to Montauk. You go to Hither Hill, it's decimated. And there's large parts of our pine forest, and I'm 14, 15 years as a member of the Pine Barrens Commission, and they're destroying our pine barrens, really, and it's a shame. And there really is no thing that we can use to kill the pine beetle. The only thing that kills them is very cold weather, which is why they're here, because we had global warming. And we do actually have an entomologist that works for the county. So he said, look, best thing you can do is before they invade, or if they invade, cut down the trees so that they're spaced out. Otherwise, forget it. It will all go. Steve can tell you that. It's a problem we're dealing with. So.
Wonderful. On this note,
What?
hold on. On this note, we'll open up to the public.
Okay.
And please, no opinions, questions, because otherwise we're gonna be going back and forth, and let's stay on topic. I know we have visitors who came in specifically from Mount Sinai to ask a question. I'll start calling on you first. If you can stand up, introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Matthew Burke, my wife Melissa Burke. We live close enough to here. Sorry if we take a portion of time for Mount Sinai, but we're on the Historical Society. We have a small nonprofit that we run ourselves called Conservation and Preservation. In our own backyard, almost literally, is another subdivision that's being built. And everyone we speak to anywhere, and we're trying to speak to everybody, is saying we don't have a chance in where to fight the BZA at the town of Brookhaven to stop this continued development based on past precedent. Now, I know we've read a bunch about you and what you've done and the death by 1,000 cuts and things like that. How do we stop these precedents from rolling forward, which inevitably will lead to everything being gone and developed in an historic district in Mount Sinai or anywhere else?
Two things, and I'm very familiar with the historic district. I know an attorney by the name of John Ray who has.
He's representing.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would suggest is that you meet with your councilwoman, who I believe is Jane Bonner, and the town supervisor, Dan Panico, and talk to them. Because you want to talk to them about what they can do to stop development like that in a historic district. Historic districts have certain powers that prevent developments from taking place. I don't know the boundaries of what you're talking about, but I know they have boundaries, they're defined, and historic districts prevent overdevelopment and also there's a historic district advisory board that, hey, you can't have that type of window, or you can't do this type of siding, because when you're in a historic district, it's extremely restrictive that other people who don't live in historic districts don't have to follow, but if you live in one, you have to follow one. So I would strongly suggest that you meet with Dan Panico, the town supervisor, and your councilwoman, and the town attorney, and/or the town historian. And they'll be able to advise you. I don't know the boundaries of the district that you're talking about.
We've reached out. The only one you mentioned that we didn't talk to was Dan. Panico?
Panico, right. And what did he have to say?
We didn't. We spoke with Jane Bonner, who supports our cause, of course, but
To tell Jane to arrange a meeting with you and Dan to sit down and talk. Dan should understand he's an attorney, he's competent, capable, and he should understand. And make sure the town attorney is there, and that I'd arrest her.
Okay.
Okay? Because historic districts have powers that other areas of the town don't have. and have all types of restrictions. What you can build, how high you can build, the colors, the types of windows, extremely restrictive if you're in that district.
Yeah.
It's all hinging on a 70% variance, a frontage variance, so in a sense of the lot that they're trying to create. So it's
Okay.
the variance right now that we're trying to.
And they say there's flag lots everywhere. We say, well, they should have never been there. There will be flag lots literally everywhere if we keep approving these things. And the board is just like, well, that's what we do.
Zoning has a lot to do with everything.
Yeah.
The county doesn't have land use powers. The town has land use powers. And you have extreme land use powers in historic districts. So I don't know where the boundaries are as it relates to your house or the development that you're talking about. Where is this being developed?
It would be on Shore Road, just north,
I know where Shore
east
Road
of
is.
North Country Road.
Rings to Harbor.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's in the triangular district in Mount Sinai. It's designated.
And what do they want to do there?
They want to take a 2.5 acre lot, make it 2 1-ish acre lots and build, because they've done that across the street with a 5 acre lot, and 4 houses. So there's a lot of properties there that are 2, 3, 4, 5 acres, 1700s circa houses there, that in our eyes, if they keep doing this, they will all soon be 1 acre lots. And the historic character, the natural character, the harbor would all be affected.
Well, unfortunately, as county executive, I don't get involved in land use.
Yeah.
We leave that to the town. Strong suggestion meet with the supervisor, the councilwoman, the town attorney.
Thank you so much.
Okay?
We will.
Because they're asking the BZA to, what? Grant the variance?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would talk to the town. They appoint the members of the CBA.
Okay. Thank you so
Talk to
much.
the supervisor and Jane, say, okay, what are you gonna do?
Thank you so much.
You're calling up people?
Yes, I am.
Yes, hi, Roger Corsella. Before you mentioned that a major problem is the septic system. You said 70% of the septic system.
70% of Suffolk County is on septic or cesspools.
Okay, so let me ask you, when these septic systems no longer function the way they're supposed to function, they do get clogged up, okay? Is there any money available to go to the denitrification system that you mentioned?
Yeah,
That would help?
it's totally funded.
It is funded.
Between the county and the town,
Yeah.
actually, the county and the state,
And
it's totally
state.
funded, absolutely.
And how much is it funded, do you know?
To whatever the cost is,
It is, so actually.
for residential.
Right, so actually.
We're looking now to see about commercial applications for that,
Okay,
okay? Right now, we've concentrated on residential.
yeah, because in 1983, I put the first denit system in Port Jeff Station.
Oh, okay.
The nitrification system with Jules, who was the head of the,
They're a little bit more sophisticated now.
yeah, from 1983, yes, they
Yes.
are, yes. But the reason why I brought it up is because of the drinking water. That's the major problem that we have besides Brookhaven having 500,000 people, where they only had 50,000 in 1950, and all these roads and all these things and all the land that's been paved over creates a major problem. But we can help with the septic system where it really goes right into our drinking water.
It's funded
So,
in total
in total.
between the county
Okay.
and the state.
Great.
And the state has been a good partner to us, and, you know, the applications are available through the health department. But feel free to give my office a call, we'll make sure you get an application if you know someone that wants to apply. But it's totally funded.
Well, thank you.
Wonderful.
So we're all gonna have a whole big line now and get septic systems.
Hopefully.
This is a question for both you and Steve. We have salt water on the south, salt water on the north. Have we ever thought of desalination plants for fresh water instead of taking it out of our campus space?
Well, I'll tell you something I learned very early on. All issues of government are issues of money. It's very simple. And since we have potable water here in our aquifers, we don't have to plan at this point to build a desalination plant. So we're not planning on that, because we do have available water at a decent cost. And if you look at your water bill, complaining if you have Suffolk County water. There are some private water companies here, but most of Suffolk County is served by Suffolk County water. And you may, wow, this is expensive. Anywhere else in the United States is cheap because we're using the water underneath our feet. All water comes from underneath our feet. It's as simple as that. That's why land use is important, because you overuse the land, you're going to wind up contaminating the water underneath the land. I know this lady's raising her hand, so.
I'm not making a statement, I'm asking a question, I have to return this, okay?
I wish I could write my answers down.
So, I'm here, on behalf of the board, which you're familiar with Brookhaven. I was asked to ask you a question. Since you got elected as county executive, leaving Brookhaven residents holding the bag of the contamination of the Brookhaven landfill, which we know sits on an aquifer, right? We're aware of that. Without any closing date or remediation, are you working with the town board in Brookhaven to ensure polluters like Reworld Garbage Incinerators Corp. pay more than the measly $1 million fine, because it's going to take decades to clean up the landfill, and that's going to be our Flint crisis?
Well, landfill's a mess. And I can talk a little bit about solid waste in Brookhaven. Solid waste in Brookhaven, for years, you built a dump, and it was called a dump, and you put your garbage there. And when the town began to grow, the state said, wait a second, we're gonna build you a landfill. The state built that landfill in 1974 and turned it over to the town of Brookhaven in 1976. You look at the state laws and the Constitution, the town has no constitutional requirement for them to run a landfill. That's usually run by the state or other entities. But they built that landfill and turned it over to the town. That landfill, which was supposed to, they had liners leaked like a sieve, and the town had to rebuild that liners. And then in 1980, I think it was 80, the state passed a law about no more landfills on Long Island. However, Brookhaven was allowed to continue because it did not take any garbage in the landfill since 1989. No garbage has gone into the landfill since 1989. Only two things went into the landfill: ash and construction debris. Ash because the town entered into an agreement with what was then called Covanta, which is now renamed Reworld, to burn garbage and turn it into energy. There were 4 Covanta plants on Long Island. One in Hempstead, that's the one that Brookhaven deals with. There's one in Babylon, and if you ever go on Southern State, you pass straight path, just look north, and you'll see the pyramid that Babylon town has built out of their ash. And one in Islip, and one in Huntington and Smithtown. So that's what happens. They burn the garbage, they turn it into electricity in those 4 plants. And Brookhaven entered into what was called an ash for trash deal. Brookhaven, from 1989, has sent its garbage to Covanta, the plant in Hempstead. It's right on Medical Parkway, you can't miss it. And what we do is then we take back the ash and we bury the ash. So that's what's going on now. A year and a couple months ago, Brookhaven stopped taking construction debris. And probably in the next year or 2, they will close the landfill completely. And the landfill doesn't operate under the town, it operates under DEC in the state of New York. And the state of New York spells out all the requirements on which the town has to meet to operate that landfill. And I assume that is also true in Babylon. We get our ash from the Hempstead plant. We also take ash from Brookhaven at this time, from Smithtown and from Huntington, and from Iceland. But that is all ending. Landfill's over. Landfill, the day of the land, it's the last operating landfill on Long Island, has been for years. So that's all over. So that will be closed, and then whatever remediation has to take place will take place. And that will be determined, not by the town, that will be determined by DEC, which regulates that landfill. That is regulated totally and completely by the state DEC.
So, I didn't hear an answer to my question, I'm sorry. Say that again, what is, are you working with the town of Brookhaven?
I'm working with the town of
find
Brookhaven to,
reroll?
and with all other 9 towns to deal with the solid waste issue. Because the state, again, has failed to do what they should do. We're gonna have to ship all this garbage off Long Island. If anyone drives the Long Island Expressway, you see the flatbeds with the big black plastic bags, that's garbage going off. That is probably one of the stupidest things that I've seen, because trucking is not the way to go. If you were going to transport garbage, it should be transported by rail. Because first of all, the nearest landfill that we could send this to is Seneca Falls. And now truck drivers can only drive for 8 hours. You can't make it to Seneca Falls and back in a day. So you've got to stay overnight. You are going to drive up the cost of getting rid of garbage hugely, hugely. So what should you do? Well, first thing we should do is reduce garbage. I strongly supported Steve when he was in the assembly, still support what's called, for producers, to, when they do packaging, to make packaging more recyclable. And they don't. You get a box of cereal, only about 2/3 of it's cereal, the other third is just wasted. So the state, that bill has been defeated time after time again by the state legislature. I've strongly advocated that we do extended producer responsibility, which is the name of the bill. And they haven't done it. The other thing is, let's take a look at ash. Oh, wow, you know, that must be toxic, really? You know where Stony Brook University is? Go in and ask to see their boathouse. That boathouse was built out of ash from Brookhaven in 1989. It's a 2-story painted green building. It is stronger today than the day it was built. And you should be using ash as an aggregate. Same thing with glass. Let's recycle glass, really? Why? It's cheaper to make new glass. It's cheaper to make new glass than it is to recycle old glass. But you know what you could do? You could do all types of things with that glass. You could crush it as fine as powder. Or you could use it as an aggregate in concrete or asphalt. That's called a BUD, a beneficial use determination. And the state doesn't do that. What we need is laws that encourage recycling. The only way to encourage recycling is not by beating people over the head, by creating markets. If you don't create markets, you're not going to see recycling. So the most important thing that you could do is create markets. Glass can be used as an aggregate in concrete. Maybe that would put the sand miners out of business. Maybe. I'd like to do that. I'd like to see at least a certain percentage of the aggregate be crushed glass, because then we could recycle glass and we could do glass pickup. We don't do glass pickup now, but there's drop-off. I think there's 15 drop-off points in Brookhaven where you can bring your glass. But you know what we do with that glass? We crush it and put it on as cover on the landfill. And the landfill's going to close because there's no market for it. We need the state to pass legislation to create markets for recycled products so we can do more recycling. If we have less garbage, and right now everyone's producing about 4.5 to 5 pounds per person per day. We have 1.5 million people. So we need to do more recycling. It's absolutely critical that we do recycling. But we need a partner, and that partner is the state of New York, and they have not stepped up to the plate.
So that means the residents are gonna carry.
I'm sorry?
The residents are gonna carry the remediation. Is that what you're saying? Because you're not, I'm not hearing you
I'm
saying
talking
that
about recycling and
Well,
the
that's
garbage
not my
prices
question.
that we're facing and what we have to do to resolve that problem, because if we don't do it, and we should not be transporting garbage off the side of a truck, we should be thinking about rail as a solution. You know, it's just cheaper, it's easier, it's more convenient, and all we're doing is moving it from one area to another. That's why recycling really is the long-term answer.
The other issue that comes in, especially when it comes back to the trash, is it's really inconvenient to drop off the electronics, which is part of the reason why we have the heavy metals that are being leaked as
Right.
part of this trash or in another, and the composting, which creates a lot of greenhouse.
Composting's good, but you don't want to lay it next to a compost site, particularly when they turn it. We have several composting sites. The biggest one is in Manaville. The town of Brookhaven has a composting site there, but we have other composting sites throughout the town. But when you have a large composting site, every time you can't leave it, you have to turn it. You turn it, not the most pleasant odor in the world. So, but you know what everyone can do, which isn't unpleasant? A little composting at home. You know, and you put it in a barrel, let it sit there, turn it, your potato peels, your grass, whatever else, you can create your own compost at home. And that should be a great program for the library to run, how to do home composting, so that we all handle our own waste, if we can, if you have a home, if you have a yard. Not everyone has a yard, some people in condos, they rent apartments. But if you have a yard, you probably could do a little bit of composting on your own.
And the other thing is that the recycling the electronics, this library does run this program, but it runs twice a year. And a lot of the times, these smaller electronics, people are like, next time, or you know what, the bin. Is there anything that the council can do to create those conditions to encourage people to recycle?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can do PR. The one thing the county doesn't have, which the town does, which you should use, the town has a TV station, Channel 18, okay? And they're always looking for content. They actually have a studio that they built after I left the supervisor. They're always looking for content. We'd love to convince the town to put a program on about how you can do composting at home. And believe it or not, you would think, who would watch that? I'm always amazed that people watch Channel 18, particularly town board meetings or the ZBA meetings. But county has no TV channel because we don't license cable visions. The town does. So,
All right, any more questions?
yes.
It's another money question about the mill pond in Stony Brook where the dam was washed out. Can you
The dam?
The dam, so there's the mill pond in Stony Brook,
Right.
the dam was washed out,
Mhm.
now it's a mudflat basically, and the road is still washed out.
Well, that's the road over the dam.
The road.
No dam, no road.
No dam, no road.
And half that road's in the village of Hatter Harbor, and half of it's in the town of Brookhaven.
Right, and-
Town is
and
prepared
Warrenville
to,
built- yeah.
the
So-
town is prepared to build that road right away.
So let me just ask a monetary question.
Yeah.
So my understanding from, it's basically Head of Harbor residents have an organization, they send out mailing lists, is that FEMA looks like they're willing to pay for restoration of the road.
But not the dam.
culvert. What's the incremental cost to go from
The
road?
road and the
to
dam collectively, and I'm gonna give you an estimate because I'm not involved, the county's not involved in it, but that's about $10 million.
And the
About
in-
10 million.
And the increment between rebuilding the road with the culvert, so you don't get your mill.
Well, then you won't have a mill pond.
Well, there's no mill pond with the culvert, the water just goes through.
That's right, that's correct.
So what would be the incremental cost to restore the dam? What's the difference between,
It's not the intermittent course, has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the DEC. Because they have to issue the permits.
the
And
state
they
needs?
are,
Okay.
I don't want to misquote them or say anything, but I believe that they are leaning towards, and you'd have to ask the DEC, more to the culvert as opposed to the dam.
And that's not because of what FEMA said they were willing to do, because that's the story.
That's two different stories. FEMA is, whether they're going to reimburse. And the dam, it was owned by Ward Melville Heritage Organization,
Yeah.
which I know
That's
is
another
not,
question.
we did the title search. The county did the title search, as well as the town. I was county clerk for 16 years. You know what a title search is. Ward Melville Heritage owns the dam. They own the creek, they own the mill pond, they own the houses along there. So they own that, and I wish they would have been more forthcoming in the beginning. It took them a while to say that.
We all wish that, but can I just, so am I hearing you correctly? The incremental cost is not substantial between culvert, no restored mill pond, and dam, and getting the restored?
Well, if they did a culvert, first of all, the town is prepared to build its half of that road. The village has to step up and build their half, because the town can't spend taxpayers' money in another township, in another village, because that's in Smithtown. So the creek was the dividing line. So I know the town is prepared to spend the money, and they want to rebuild the dam, see the dam rebuilt so they can build on top of it. If that doesn't happen, they'll just build a bridge. But they'll only build half the bridge. The village has to step up. Oh, they can't build. Yeah.
I mean, are you saying it's not a substantial difference cost-wise? I mean, I'm just trying to hear an answer to that question.
I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but I would assume a culvert's much cheaper than a dam. Well, because we're dealing with the same issue for Stump Pond.
Yes.
And I know our costs are expensive, it's going to be between $6 and $8 million. But, we'll see what happens, because at the end of the day, we all have to get permits from DEC, New York State DEC.
Any other questions? I see two hands. 1, 2, 3.
I'd like to follow up on that question.
Yeah.
So the $10 million that you mentioned,
That's an estimate.
does that assume that the dam is built?
That assumes that the dam is built and the road will be built over it. But it could be more, because I'm not an engineer. That was the original estimates that I had heard, so
Thank you.
I don't have the exact number on that. But that would have to be, get permits from DEC, and whether they're prepared. I think they'd be prepared to do a bridge. I don't know if they're prepared to do a dam and allow the town to build on top of the dam. So that's up to DEC. Their processes, I won't get into.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
Mr. Romaine. Question. We are homeowners, we have a cesspool.
Right.
We're interested in learning more information about how we can replace the cesspool we have
Sure.
with something that's going to help the quality of water. Who can we call and where can we find out information about the program you mentioned earlier?
We're gonna have a program here, I have a deputy county executive that
Sylvia?
deals, that's Jennifer Youngs.
Oh, okay, Jennifer. Okay.
Jen, who's an attorney
Okay.
and very knowledgeable, has
Yeah,
been
yeah.
around, she's worked from town, Smithtown. Very knowledgeable person, and will help you and put on a program here, bring people in, answer any questions. Bring applications for those who want to take a look at it.
Thank you.
All right.
Board of Health also.
Yes.
I just had
Louder.
I missed it, but is the Suffolk County Land Bank still considering transferring some of that Lawrence Aviation property to the MTA?
Lawrence Aviation, about 100 acres. And one-third. The western third is where the buildings were. Because I'm critical of DEC, let me say something nice. DEC paid to knock down those buildings. The county will be entering into a contract to do solar on that, because it's all clear. More money that is made from that will go back to the EPA, because the EPA is looking to get repaid. The middle third, which is very wooded, will stay wooded and was bought by the town of Brookhaven, I think for a couple $1 million, maybe $6 million, I don't have to figure. That will go back to the EPA, because they're looking to get money out of it. The last eastern third would be where the MTA would have an interest in building a rail yard, because they can't do electrification without a rail yard. Okay, right now the trains end a little further down by Columbia Street, a little further down, but they would do a rail yard, and the MTA would then also look to maybe move the station and do away with the grade crossing at 112. But I'll let the MTA tell you that. Those are discussions that I have, but with the MTA, a very difficult agency to deal with.
So there's no whisper date?
Excuse me?
Is there a whisper date when it might happen?
No,
No.
no, because from the moment I became supervisor, which is 2012, I've lobbied for electrification of the rail repeatedly. MTA is not investing in Suffolk County. They're not investing. I met with Jana Lira and I said, you know, congestion pricing, I'm not going to speak against it or for it. I just want to know if Suffolk County is going to benefit from it. Because I've got to think, yeah, people come from Connecticut, people come from Hudson, River Valley, people come from New Jersey, but I think at least a third, 40% of people that get hit up for congestion pricing come from Long Island. Are we going to see any benefit from that? I just testified last week fortunately I have to drive this, because it was at 6 o'clock in downtown Manhattan. I could do it, but they gave me exactly 2 minutes. And I talked about a number of things for Suffolk, because we have a number of grade crossings. 112 is only one of them. We have a number of grade crossings that they haven't addressed. I'll give you a perfect example, Colton Avenue, Central Islip. You know, that gate goes down 72 times a day. And at that point, Colton Avenue is a two-lane highway. Doesn't get, till you get down to the old site center was, as it become 4 lanes. So it's like a mess most of the day because of those gates going down. That's true for Straight Path, that's true for Brentwood Road, it's true for Fifth Avenue, it's true for Lowell Avenue, it's true for Ocean Avenue in Islip. So, I mean, it's just, there's no investment of any series. And of course, what do you have? We have a county that, this is the 21st century, that depends on diesel. East of Babylon, diesel. East of Ronkonkoma, diesel. East of Huntington, diesel. Are you kidding me? Most polluting flue. I mean, it's just incredible. But there is no strong commitment. I get to name 3 people, of which one will be chosen by the governor to the MTA board to represent Suffolk County. I put 3 names into the governor, who I thought would serve well, and she chose Mark Herbst, who is the president of the Long Island Contractors Association. And if anyone, I mean, his members would benefit from construction, so I'm hoping that he will. In his other life, he's a Lutheran priest, so I hope that God is on his side. So, but I had chosen other people that I thought would have done a good job. But it really doesn't matter, because we're outvoted in the MTA, most of the money goes to the city of New York. And that's just the way it is. And we've become essentially the pocketbook for Albany and for the city. And so much of our money, we don't see returned to us, not even a fraction of it. It's just incredible to me.
That is one of the issues that the 3 civics that we're getting together, the Port Jeff Station, the 3 Village Civic Association, and us, we continuously starting to work on the MTA issues, specifically in helping us to address some
Love
of
the
those
Stony Brook
issues.
Station. How many students go to Stony Brook? What?
There's 30,000 students at the college,
30,
a lot come from, Long Island.
yeah, that could use that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have the same complaint out east for the East End commuters. If you've ever tried to go out east, Sunrise High ends, and County Road 39 begins, you know the expression trade parade. It's bumper to bumper. It's the busiest, heaviest traffic in Suffolk County from about 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning, and the same way coming home. Therefore, a lot of people try to take the train, because people can't afford to live out there. So people that work out there, they live in Brookhaven, they live in Iceland, they commute. So we're trying to get a South Fork commuter train that would run, get these people to work on time. Very difficult to get MTA to do this. By the way, you should know the president of the Long Island Railroad, very nice guy. Doesn't have too much power. He lives right here in Port Jeff Station. Real good guy, and he's got a great last name, Free. Robert Free. So I said, hey, that, you know, there's something to be said for free transportation. I'm waiting to see if Mayor Mandami can make those buses run free. I can tell you, we'd like to run more buses. We're 3.5 times geographically the size of Nassau County. Nassau County gets over $100 million a year for their buses from the state. We get 44 million. Okay?
Another issue for us to look at. I would like to wrap this up. We need to leave this place at 8:30, but please do mingle around. This is specifically an opportunity to be able to discuss, to have conversations. Let's thank our guests.
Let's hope together we can solve some of our problems, from garbage to water to transportation, because they're not going to go away. So thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.